Good evening. I am going to discuss my findings and what I found interesting about the CREO study on online charter schools. So, first and foremost, the purpose of the study was to present database information of academic impact for students who attended online charter schools. Okay. This article was great to come at this time as we are in the thick of our students being online and we are seeing the impact of online on our students' academic success. For me, it has been a roller coaster as far as being able to see my students go through it. We have some good days and then we have some bad days. And they talked about that in the introduction about how online learning may be specifically for a certain characteristic of student. Okay. So the study is done in 2015 where the enrollment of online learning was about 5%. The study was done because there was an increase in looking at online learning. They saw a need of being able to identify the impact as online learning began to grow. To identify the groups in which they needed was a challenge. Mostly because schools that have online learning are within the public schools or underneath the brick and mortar schools. So they wanted to identify schools that were fully online learning and did not include students who took both either a blended curriculum or that took one or two courses online. They wanted students to be able to fully be engaged in the online learning. So within their search, they looked for terms and words like online, virtual, cyber, and distance learning. What they found was many of the charter schools in which they looked at, again, were not independent and they were under the umbrella of traditional schools. Sorry, I'm going back over things. So the CREO study, I thought was really great that they had to figure out how they were going to measure the kids because they looked at 17 different states, including the District of Columbia. They had to create a way in which they were going to the standardized way in which they were going to compare the students' growth. So they talked a little bit about that. They used the VCR method, so the virtual control record method. And in order to do that, they needed to create a matched data set. So they utilized virtual twins. So the students that were doing the virtual learning had a twin that was also in the brick and mortar class. So they were able to align students based on race, age, gender, class, whether the student had a disability or whether the student was an English language learner. That I found very interesting, and how much work did that take? I can only imagine. The only thing that the study pointed out that it could not control was when it looked at the feeder schools and seeing how many of the students were Caucasian that were attending the online versus those that were not. And so they found that it was a higher group of white from the feeder schools, 69% versus 45%. Okay. So what the results were from the study is that online learning is not really a great fit for every student. It doesn't work well for students that are atypical students, and it doesn't really work well for the general population. So they saw a weaker growth in students who attended the online charter school versus those that attended the traditional schools. They also saw a weaker growth in students with ELA and students with disabilities. They also talked about the low number of students that they had with ELA based on because of the, not based on, but because of the way in which teachers communicated through email, phone calls, and things like that. It was more difficult for those students. So those are my findings and what I found interesting about the article.